mother's guilt, a father's excuse. Detective Stanton exchanged a glance with Officer Morrison before speaking. I need to speak with each of you separately. Derrick's brow furrowed. What for? You think we had something to do with this? Stanton's voice remained calm and professional. Standard procedure, Mr. Castillo. We need as much information as possible. It's easier to focus when we're one-on-one. Hannah wiped at her tear-streaked face, nodding slowly. Fine, whatever helps find Abby. Stanton motioned toward the dimly lit hallway. Mrs. Castillo, if you could come with me? Hannah hesitated for a moment, then followed her inside. Officer Morrison remained on the porch, watching Derrick. Mr. Castillo, if you'd wait here, we'll talk next. Derrick muttered something under his breath, but said nothing more. As Detective Stanton stepped inside, her eyes swept over the interior. The faded floral wallpaper peeled at the corners, curling like old paper left in the rain. The air smelled of stale cigarette smoke and burnt coffee, mixed with the lingering scent of cheap lemon cleaner. A small, dim living room stretched ahead, furnished with a sagging brown couch, a scratched-up coffee table, and an outdated box television. An overflowing ashtray sat on the armrest beside a half-empty can of beer that had long gone cold. The place had a stifling air of exhaustion. A house that had seen better days but was barely holding together, much like its occupants. Stanton walked past a pile of unopened mail on a rickety wooden table, some addressed to Hannah Castillo, some to Derrick. The past due notices were hard to ignore. Hannah's bare feet padded against the scuffed linoleum as she led Stanton into the kitchen. The kitchen was small and cramped. The overhead light buzzed faintly, casting a dull yellow glow over the scarred wooden table and mismatched chairs. An empty coffee mug sat in the sink, stained from years of use. A small pile of dishes teetered on the counter. The refrigerator hummed in the background, its surface cluttered with old magnets, overdue bill reminders, and a single school photo of Abby from her sophomore year. Hannah pulled out a chair and sank into it. Stanton sat across from her, notepad in hand. Mrs. Castillo, I need to go over your whereabouts in the last 12 hours. Can you walk me through your night? Hannah swallowed hard, rubbing at her tired, red-rimmed eyes. I worked the night shift at Living Oaks Nursing and Rehabilitation. I got there around 6 in the evening, and clocked out at 4 this morning. Was that your usual schedule? Stanton asked. Hannah nodded. Most nights, yeah. I do doubles when they need extra coverage. I need the money, so I don't say no. Stanton made a note. And while you were working, did you have access to your phone? Hannah exhaled a slow, shaky breath. No. I left it at the nurse's station at the end of the hallway across from the elevators. We're not supposed to keep them on us during shifts. So you didn't see any calls come in from Abby's friends? Hannah blinked rapidly. No, not until I got off work. I checked as soon as I left, and that's when I saw the missed calls from Melanie, Sophie, and Jamie. That's when I knew something was wrong. Stanton studied her for a moment. Can anyone confirm you were at work the entire time? Hannah let out a humorless laugh. Half the damn staff can. My supervisor, my coworkers. Hell, even the patients. It was a bad night. Stanton tilted her head slightly. What do you mean by bad night? Hannah's shoulders sagged. One of my patients, he was passing. I sat with him for hours, holding his hand and listening to his last words. She shook her head. It was hard. I was so distracted by it. I didn't even think to check my phone sooner. She buried her face in her hands, voice cracking. God, what if Abby needed me? What if I could have helped if I'd answered? Stanton's expression remained neutral, but inside she felt a twinge of something close to sympathy. She'd seen it before, a mother drowning in guilt, wondering if one small action could have changed everything. Mrs. Castillo, Stanton said evenly, this is not your fault. What matters now is finding Abby. Hannah sniffled, nodding weakly. Okay. Stanton tapped her pen against the notepad. Did Abby seem off to you recently? Any signs she was upset, scared, or hiding something? Hannah's lips parted as if to say, but then she hesitated. Her mind drifted to 2 weeks ago, when Abby came home late one night, her face pale, her eyes distant. She's been different, Hannah admitted slowly, ever since things ended with Givian. She wasn't eating much, barely sleeping, and she stopped talking to me. Stanton noted that down. Did she say anything about Givian? Any fights, threats, anything suspicious? Hannah hesitated. She told me he left her when she found out she was pregnant. Stanton's eyes flickered with interest. Pregnant? Hannah nodded, her voice brittle. She didn't keep it, but I think it broke her. Silence hung between them for a moment. Stanton jotted down more notes. "And when was the last time you saw Abby before tonight?" Hannah bit her lip. "Yesterday morning. She left for school as usual. I told her I'd see her when I got home." Her voice cracked, but she never came home. Stanton closed her notepad for a moment, studying the broken woman in front of her. "We'll do everything we can to bring her back, Mrs. Castillo. But I need you to think, is there anyone who would want to hurt Abby?" Hannah thought for a long moment. Then, with a trembling breath, she whispered, "Givian." Stanton's eyes darkened. She flipped to a fresh page in her notepad. "Tell me everything you know about him." Detective Stanton leaned back slightly in her chair, watching Hannah closely. The kitchen's dim lighting cast tired shadows across Hannah's face, making the dark circles under her eyes even more prominent. The woman looked exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally drained, as if life had wrung her out and left her barely standing. "Tell me about Givian," Stanton prompted, her pen hovering over her notepad. Hannah exhaled sharply, running a shaky hand through her hair. "I never liked him." Stanton's pen scribbled across the page. "Why not?" Hannah let out a small bitter laugh. "Because he was a selfish little punk who never really cared about my daughter." Stanton stayed silent, letting her continue. Hannah shook her head, staring at the scratched surface of the table. "I work. A lot. Too much. I didn't have time to be one of those moms who were all up in their kids' business. But I noticed things. Abby changed when she was with him. She was always waiting on him, waiting for him to text back, waiting for him to pick her up, waiting for him to decide when he had time for her." Her voice tightened with resentment. She was in love with him, and he knew it, and he used it. "How do you mean?" Stanton asked. Hannah rubbed her tired eyes. "He'd make her feel like she was lucky just to have his attention. He played hot and cold. One day he'd be all over her, showing her off to his friends. Next, he'd disappear for hours, not answering her messages. If she got upset, he'd turn. It was on her, making her feel like she was being clingy." Stanton nodded slowly. Classic manipulation. Hannah gave a humorless smirk. "Yeah, he had a real talent for it." "Did Abby ever talk to you about their relationship?" Stanton asked. Hannah sighed. "Not much. She didn't want to hear what I had to say about him." She hesitated, then added, "But I saw the signs, the little things. The way her confidence started to shrink. The way she flinched when her phone went off, like she was afraid of whatever message was coming next. The way she stopped laughing as much. She swallowed hard, eyes glassy. And then she got pregnant." Stanton tapped her pen against the notepad. "What happened after that?" Hannah exhaled, shaking her head. "She told him, and just like that he was done with her. Told her it was her problem, not his." She let out a bitter chuckle. "I found out later he was already talking to someone else. Some other girl he'd been messing with behind Abby's back." Stanton's eyes flickered with interest. "Diana?" Hannah nodded. "Yeah, the redhead. I remember Abby mentioning her name once, but she didn't say much. I think it hurt too much to talk about." She let out a shaky breath. "That was the first time I saw Abby completely shut down. She barely left her room for days. When I tried to check on her, she just told me she was fine. I should have pushed harder. I should have." She cut herself off, pressing a hand over her mouth. Stanton waited a beat before speaking, her voice steady. "Mrs. Castillo, it's not your fault." Hannah gave a weak nod, but her expression said she didn't believe it. "After the breakup, did you notice anything unusual?" Stanton continued. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then, hesitantly, she said, "She started getting these messages." Stanton leaned forward. "Messages? From Givian?" Hannah nodded. "At first she wouldn't show me. She'd just turn her phone over or pretend she hadn't seen them. But one night I caught a glimpse. It was something like, 'You'll regret this,' or 'You're nothing without me.' I told her to block him, but she just said it wouldn't make a difference." "Why not?" Hannah sighed, rubbing her temples. "Because he knew where she lived. He knew where she hung out. Blocking him wouldn't stop him from showing up." A chill ran down Stanton's spine. "Did he ever threaten her in person?" Hannah hesitated, then nodded. "She never told me exactly what he said, but she was scared of him. And Abby. She's stubborn, but she's not the type to scare easily." Stanton made a few more notes, then closed her notepad. "Mrs. Castillo, if Givian was harassing Abby after the breakup, that's something we need to investigate further. Do you think he would hurt her?" Hannah's lips pressed into a thin line. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "I don't know. But if he did, I wouldn't be surprised." Derrick slumped into the worn-out kitchen chair, rubbing a rough hand over his face. His dark eyes were bloodshot, his stubbled jaw tense. He hadn't slept, and it showed. The moment he and Hannah stepped foot onto their property, the flashing red and blue lights stopped them in their tracks. Now, sitting under the harsh glow of the kitchen's single overhead bulb, Derrick felt the weight of the past 12 hours crashing down on him. Detective Stanton stood across the table, her sharp eyes studying him. She had already spoken to Hannah, and now it was his turn. The kitchen smelled faintly of stale coffee and old linoleum, the sink stacked with unwashed dishes. A draft from a cracked window sent a chill through the dimly lit room. Stanton flipped open her notepad. "Mr. Castillo, walk me through your last 12 hours. Derrick scoffed, shaking his head. "You people think I had something to do with my daughter going missing?" Stanton remained unshaken. "Right now I just need to establish a timeline. Start from yesterday evening." Derrick exhaled sharply. "Fine. I worked from 8 to 5, moving furniture. Hard labor, in case you're wondering. Got home and fixed a car for some guy who couldn't pay a real mechanic. That was from 6 to about 7:30. He rubbed his temples. Then I got cleaned up and left, the house at 9. Stanton didn't look away from him. "Where did you go?" Derrick hesitated for a second, then shrugged. "Lusty Leopard, the strip club?" "Yeah," he said, crossing his arms. "I go there. What, you got a problem with that?" "No problem," Stanton replied smoothly, jotting something down. "How long were you there?" Derrick sighed, shifting in his seat. "Until closing. That's what, 3:30? Did you leave at any point?" Stanton pressed. "Nope. Was there the whole damn time," Derrick said, tapping his fingers against the table. "Had a couple of drinks, watched the girls. That's it," Stanton nodded, unfazed. "And when did you get home?" Derrick glanced toward the clock on the wall. 4. Pulled up right when you all did." Stanton paused, letting the silence stretch. Derrick's fingers drummed harder against the wood. "Can anyone verify you were at the Lusty Leopard the entire night?" Derrick scoffed again. "That's candy. She was on stage most of the time. Or the bouncer. Hell, the bartender too." Stanton closed her notepad, her expression unreadable. "We'll be checking on that." Derrick leaned back, rubbing his hands over his face. "You done?" "For now," Stanton said, her voice cool and professional. "But don't go anywhere." Derrick muttered a curse under his breath as Stanton walked toward the living room. He was exhausted, frustrated, and now under a detective's microscope. And Abby was still missing. As Officer Morrison drove the girls back to the station, the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on them like a thick fog. No one spoke. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the police radio. Detective Stanton finally broke the silence. "I have officers canvassing the area," she informed them, keeping her tone measured. "They're checking for any surveillance footage, doorbell cameras, security systems, anything that might have caught what happened." Melanie nodded weakly, gripping the hem of her sleeve. Sophie still stared out the window, deep in thought, while Jamie sat motionless, fingers locked together in her lap. Jamie was the first to speak. "So, what now?" Her voice was tight, her throat dry. "What do we do?" "For now, try to relax," Stanton instructed. "If anything new comes to mind, no matter how small, write it down. And if you remember something later, call me immediately." She reached into the pocket of her blazer, pulled out a crisp white business card, and handed it over the seat to Melanie. Melanie took it without a word, her fingers trembling slightly. As they pulled into the station parking lot, Detective Stanton turned slightly toward them. "You all did the right thing by calling the police as quickly as you did. It's always better to be ahead of a kidnapping case." She hesitated, then added carefully, "If that's what this is." A sharp chill ran through the car. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "Get home safe," she said, "and please try to remember anything you can. It could make all the difference." Officer Morrison shifted the car into park and stepped out. A moment later, the sound of the back doors unlocking filled the car, but the girls didn't move. They simply sat there frozen, as though stepping out meant accepting the nightmare they were now living. A second later, Officer Morrison opened the back door for them. "You're good to go," he said gently, stepping aside. As they stepped out, the early morning air hit them, crisp and damp. The sky was still a dark shade of blue, but the first hints of daylight stretched across the horizon. Melanie unlocked her car, and they all slid inside, but instead of starting the engine, she just sat there. We need to talk this through, she finally said. Sophie let out a shaky breath. Yeah, tomorrow. Jamie pulled her knees up to her chest. We need to figure out what the hell just happened. Melanie turned the key, the engine rumbling to life. As she backed out of the parking lot, she glanced at the rearview mirror, her stomach twisting into knots. They had come here looking for answers. Instead, they left with more questions, and Abby was still out there,